In the pursuit of success, many people look outward. They chase after titles, wealth, recognition, believing that these external rewards will bring them satisfaction. But success that is only defined by outer achievement becomes a moving target. No matter how much is gained, the hunger remains. This is because what we truly seek is not out there, but within. When the inner world is unbalanced, no amount of outer reward can fill the silence inside. A tree that grows tall must first root deep. If its roots are shallow, the first strong wind will bring it down. In the same way, human success that is not rooted in inner clarity and peace becomes fragile. One harsh word, one failure, one loss, and it all begins to collapse. But when a person leaves from inner alignment, no external force can easily shake their foundation. Their success is not dependent on the world's applause. Inner alignment means to live in harmony with truth. It is a quiet recognition that peace is not the result of achieving something, but of being something. To be still inside while the world rushes outside. To act not from fear or comparison, but from a place of purpose. This alignment gives rise to a different kind of power, a silent strength that does not need to prove itself. There are many who climb high only to discover the mountain is empty. They sacrificed relationships, health, integrity, for an image of success shaped by others, and when they arrive, they find that the heart is still restless. Inner alignment would have told them early, this is not the path. But without listening inward, the outer voice becomes louder than the inner whisper, and the whisper is where truth speaks. Success without inner work is noisy. It depends on validation, it demands attention. It looks successful but feels hollow. Inner alignment, by contrast, is quiet. It does not need to be seen. It does not shout. It simply is. And because it is anchored in something deeper than circumstance, it cannot be taken away by loss, nor inflated by gain. People often ask, how do I become successful? But the better question is, how do I become clear? For from clarity comes direction, and from direction comes effort that is not wasted. To be aligned inwardly means that your thoughts, your actions, and your intentions all point in the same direction. When this happens, even small efforts carry great power because they are not scattered. They are focused like sunlight through a lens. True success, then, is not measured by what we accumulate, but by what we align with. It is the result of choosing the inner over the outer, not in neglect, but in order. When the inner world is settled, the outer world reflects that order. This is why some people, even in silence and simplicity, radiate a presence more powerful than those with fame or fortune. Their success is rooted in being, not having. In a world that moves fast, inner alignment requires stillness. It is not achieved through more doing, but through deeper being. One must sit with themselves. One must ask difficult questions. One must learn to hear the voice that does not shout, but waits. We often imagine God as something far away, residing in a place beyond reach. So we search in temples, in scriptures, in rituals. But the deeper truth is this: God is not found in the noise of activity, but in the stillness that remains when the activity falls away. Behind every action, beneath every breath, there is a space, a quiet presence that asks for no recognition. That presence is not separate from us. It waits in the silence we avoid. The world trains us to act, to accomplish, to be in motion. We are rewarded for speed, for results, for movement. But in the silence between actions lies a more powerful force. That force does not rush, it does not force, it allows. The presence of God is not in the doing itself, but in the awareness with which we do. A cup filled with water is useful only because of the empty space it holds. So too, our lives become meaningful only when we are aware of the space in which they unfold. When a person becomes still, not just physically, but mentally, they begin to feel something else arise. It is not a thought, not an emotion, but a quiet knowing. A presence, it cannot be held or named, yet it is more real than any object. That is the presence of God. It is not distant, it is closer than breath, but only in stillness can it be felt. And this is why the greatest teachings are not spoken. They are experienced in silence. Stillness is not the absence of action, but the fullness of awareness. A monk may sweep the floor for hours, but if the action is filled with presence, it is not labor, it is prayer. The presence of God is not something we need to seek. It is already here. We simply have to stop long enough to recognize it. And yet, to stop in a world addicted to motion feels like rebellion. That rebellion is the beginning of awakening. The wise do not speak often of God, not because they do not believe, but because they know that words reduce what cannot be contained. In doing, the ego finds comfort. In stillness, the ego dissolves. What remains is not emptiness, but fullness without boundary. In that fullness, there is no separation. The presence of God is the presence of total unity, where self and other no longer oppose each other. Many try to grasp God through effort, through discipline, through perfection of behavior. But effort that comes from restlessness can never touch the eternal. It is like stirring water and expecting to see the bottom clearly. Only when the water settles does the reflection appear. This is the value of stillness, not to escape life, but to see it as it truly is without distortion. Every breath we take carries the potential for stillness. Not just the pause between inhale and exhale, but the awareness that watches it. That awareness does not judge, does not change, it only sees. In that seeing, we return to what is unchanging. The body moves, the mind speaks, the world spins. But the presence within all of it remains untouched. That is the presence of God, not above us, but beneath the surface of all we do. A person may accomplish great things, may touch the sky with their ambition. But if they have never sat still long enough to feel the ground beneath them, they will always feel unrooted. Stillness teaches us what success cannot. It reveals not what we are trying to become, but what we have always been. Discipline is often praised as the path to greatness. Wake early, train hard, repeat. These are the signs of a disciplined person. But discipline alone is mechanical. It can build strong bodies and sharp minds, but without devotion, it cannot reach the heart. To do something repeatedly without a deeper reason is to become efficient at emptiness. Movement without meaning is no different from noise. Devotion is not merely belief. It is presence, sincerity, and direction of the heart. It gives purpose to repetition. It gives life to structure. A man may practice forms every morning, but if his mind is not rooted in something beyond the form, then he becomes no more than a machine repeating steps. Devotion transforms discipline from a habit into a sacred act. In a monastery, one can see two monks sweeping the same floor. One does it because it is his duty, the other because it is his offering. The difference is not in the action. It is in the spirit behind it. Devotion turns even the smallest task into something pure. Discipline may bring consistency, but only devotion can awaken meaning in the act. Many pursue success with iron discipline. They wake at dawn, push through pain, achieve goals, but once the goal is reached, there is often an emptiness. The journey was filled with effort but lacked soul. Devotion is what fills the silence after achievement. It connects each step to something beyond the self. Without it, discipline becomes a form of self, punishment rather than self-discovery. Discipline creates the path, devotion gives it direction. One can follow rules, hold posture, chant words, but if the heart is not engaged, the practice becomes hollow. It is like drawing water from a dry well. Discipline without devotion may be impressive from the outside, but inside it leads to fatigue, not fulfillment. The body continues, but the spirit grows tired. True discipline arises naturally when it is connected to devotion. You do not force yourself to care for something you love. The effort becomes joy. The struggle becomes part of the offering. You do not need to be told to return to the practice. It calls you. Devotion makes the work feel light, even when it is difficult. It transforms sacrifice into freedom. A warrior who trains without devotion becomes dangerous, not only to others, but to himself. For power without inner purpose is easily misused. But a warrior who trains with devotion becomes a protector, not a destroyer. The same sword can cut or defend. The difference lies in the intention of the one who wields it. That intention is shaped by devotion. There are those who have mastered every external discipline, but feel disconnected inside. They wonder why the rewards feel dull, why the success brings no peace. It is because the effort was never connected to the sacred. The outer form was perfected, but the inner flame was neglected. The ego is concerned with position. It wants to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be above. It measures itself in comparison. Who is ahead, who is behind? For the ego, success is about visibility and control. It feeds on titles, on victories, on applause. But this success is never enough. Once achieved, it fades quickly, and the search begins again. The ego is addicted to more. The soul does not speak in the language of quantity. It does not ask, "How much have I done?" but rather, "Am I in harmony?" Where the ego builds walls to define itself, the soul seeks to dissolve those walls and feel unity. Its measure of success is not status, but sincerity. The soul is fulfilled by connection, deep presence with life, with others, with the divine. In this space, no scoreboard is needed. One can be successful in the eyes of the world, yet starved for connection. Surrounded by admiration, yet internally alone. The ego can gather a crowd, but it cannot form true bond. The soul, even in silence, finds communion with the unseen. When you walk into a room, your presence carries more than your name. It carries your alignment, whether you are living from the ego or the soul. The ego thrives on separation. It must be better than, faster than, more than. The soul seeks wholeness. It asks, "What do I belong to?" These two forces live in all of us. When we pursue success without awareness, we empower the ego. We climb, we chase, we conquer. But if we are not careful, we look back one day and find that the climb took us away from what truly mattered. Connection does not shout. It does not display. It is felt in the quiet moments, in a conversation without judgment, in a gesture done without need for reward, in sitting beside someone in silence without needing to impress. These are not the things the ego values, but they are the things the soul remembers. In the end, it is not what we did that brings peace, but how deeply we lived and connected while doing it. The soul is drawn not to appearance, but to essence. It recognizes the truth in someone's eyes before a single word is spoken. The ego speaks loudly to convince others. The soul listens quietly to understand. If we are always trying to prove something, we are not at peace. But when we are simply present, without pretense, connection naturally arises. This is why the soul's success looks invisible from the outside, but feels undeniable from within. A person may spend years perfecting a craft, building a legacy, achieving goals. But if none of it draws them closer to their own heart, or to the hearts of others, then the work has served the ego, not the soul. Success built on ego is fragile. It breaks when approval is withdrawn or when mistakes arise. But success built on connection is resilient. It is not tied to outcome. It is rooted in meaning. The soul does not rush. It waits, it watches, it guides quietly. The ego will always want the stage, the title, the reward. But something deeper in us knows that the real treasure is not being celebrated, but being known. Not being admired, but being understood. There are many kinds of success in this world. Some build empires, some shape nations. Others command attention with their voice or their craft. But no matter how high one climbs, if the soul is restless, the summit feels cold. When success is pursued without awareness of the sacred, it becomes heavy. It demands more, consumes more, and yet gives less in return. The higher one rises, the further one feels from stillness. To forget God is not always an act of denial. It is often the result of distraction. The mind becomes so focused on achievement that it no longer looks inward. It becomes absorbed in doing, producing, acquiring. In this state, peace is replaced by pressure. The heart becomes tight, the breath shallow. Success gained in this way may impress others, but it quietly robs the individual of serenity. Peace is not found in the absence of striving, but in the presence of purpose. When a person remembers God, not as a figure, but as the sacred order behind all life, their actions begin to shift. Success becomes service. Achievement becomes expression. The tension softens because the goal is no longer to prove worth, but to reflect truth. There is a calm that enters when one knows their work is not separate from the divine. Without God, success becomes self-centered. It becomes a mirror that reflects only the ego. The mind says, "I did this," and clings to the result. But this clinging breeds fear. Fear of losing, fear of being surpassed, fear of failing. Where there is fear, there can be no peace. But when one surrenders the outcome, when one says, "Let this be for something higher," then even in uncertainty, there is rest. Many successful people speak of an emptiness that came after reaching their goal. They thought the finish line would bring relief, but instead it brought more desire. This is the pattern of a life disconnected from the sacred. When success is built only on personal will, it cannot nourish the deeper parts of the being. The outer life may thrive, but the inner life withers. It is a success that costs the soul its quiet. To remember God in success is to recognize that we are not the source, but the vessel. It is not to diminish effort, but to place it in right relation. Gratitude flows naturally in such a state because one sees the invisible hands that made the visible possible. This gratitude softens pride, and from that softness, peace emerges, not because all is perfect, but because all is held in trust. There is a deep stillness that surrounds those who live in awareness of the sacred. They may be active, they may lead, they may carry great responsibility, but inside they are not agitated. Their success does not own them. It flows through them. They do not grasp it tightly, nor fear its loss. It is a fruit of their alignment, not the measure of their identity. And because of this, peace remains present even in movement. When peace departs from a life of success, it is often a signal, a quiet message from within, saying, "You have forgotten something," not in words, but in feeling. And if that signal is ignored, the discontent grows louder. No amount of praise or wealth can replace the still voice that calls us back to what is eternal.